I'm Bob Gruen. I'm a rock and roll photographer from New York City, and I'm going to tell you a couple of stories about my pictures, and I hope you like it. In the fall of 1976, I went to England for the first time, and actually I didn't really know that there was a rock and roll scene going on. I went to visit my son, and I stopped in London, and the only person I knew, the only phone number I had was Malcolm McLaren. He started up the band, the Sex Pistols, and he told me that he had that band, and I thought, the Sex Pistols? You can't even say that word on the radio. Although nowadays you say it, it sounds common, everybody heard of it, but back then that was kind of a very shocking name. And he took me to a place called the Club Louise, which was where all the punk rock kids were hanging out. It was a very early part of the scene, but in that one nightclub there, I met the Sex Pistols and the Clash and Susie and the Banshees and Billy Idol and some of the journalists who were going to write about the punk scene. Caroline Coon and John Savage were there. And it really was this one little room that just seemed to have the whole beginnings of the punk movement in England. And I just happened to be there at the right time. And Malcolm introduced me to everybody, and he encouraged me to take pictures of the Sex Pistols, and I took some pictures of them during that trip. And then I came back a year later in 1977, and by that time, Sid Vicious was in the band because he had a much more of a punk attitude than Glenn Matlock. And Malcolm asked me to come with them while they were doing an interview at Radio Luxembourg. And so we flew from London over to Brussels on the way to Luxembourg, and we stopped at a bar before doing the interview, and they were having a few drinks, and at one point I looked up and I realized that the whole band was sitting on the same side of the table, and they were all right next to each other, and I said, oh, well, let me take a quick group picture of everybody. And they were very creative. Instead of just sitting there and looking at me, they picked up some straws, and they immediately got ideas from each other, and one has the straw to the table, and one has the straw to somebody's head, and one has the straw to a glass, and they were all doing different things, but fitting together in a kind of a comedy team, almost like the Marx Brothers or something, because they worked together so well. And that was very interesting to see, the humor behind the Sex Pistols. You know, people say that they're very obnoxious, but they were actually very funny. And I enjoyed that.